Hey everyone, welcome to the Gut Guide Summit. I'm your host, Rosanna Lincecum, and since this is the first episode, we are going to get into some gut health basics today. So just making sure everyone's on the same page so that the rest of the summit they can absorb and really understand from all the levels of what we're talking about. So thank you for being with us today. Dr. Kris Sargent is with us, and she's going to help us to learn about the basics of gut health, the digestive system, how it works, so we can get started. So thank you for being with us today, Dr. Kris.
Hey, thank you, Roseanne. I appreciate it. I really do like to keep things simple. So I taught physiology for a few years, and I taught to pre-nursing students. So these are people that are going to be your healthcare providers, but I had to learn how to put it in a way that made sense to people. So I'm your girl for that. I can do that.
Yes, that's what we need. We need you. So thank you so much for doing that. So let's get into it so we can get started. So what does the digestive system do?
Okay, so that's a great place to start, actually. And how does it work, right? So our digestive system is responsible for bringing in all of the nutrients that we need. So there's a lot of controversy out there about what we need and how much to eat and all that. But as a general big broad rule, and there's probably people that will argue with me, there's about 30 nutrients that we need. I mean, again, plus or minus, blah, blah. But there's about 30 things that our body absolutely has to have to run on. Those are vitamins, minerals, protein, fat, carbohydrates, right? And there's a whole bunch of different vitamins and a few different minerals. Think about minerals as like rocks, even though they're not. That's kind of what they are. So we have to get that stuff in our body. And if it's sitting out here in a cup or on a plate, then those things have to be we have to get that stuff inside somehow, right? So we have a mouth, and that's really where digestion starts. We chew what we eat, right? Or not.
Yeah.
Right. If you don't chew, you haven't started the digestive process. If you chew twice and swallow, you really still haven't started the digestive process. When we chew our food, we actually start breaking down the carbohydrates or the sugary parts of our food or the starchy parts of our food. That's the stuff that gets started digesting in the mouth. So when we eat too fast, we miss that piece.
Right. So our enzymes start breaking down our food in our mouth.
Amylase is made and produced. Well, it's produced up in the salivary glands. It's pushed out into our saliva, and we start breaking things down. So when we swallow the food, it goes down a pipe called the esophagus and lands in our stomach. In our stomach is on our left side, right under our rib cage, and it's about the size of your fist, actually. Right? We think it's bigger, but it's actually about the size of our fist. And so if you think about how much food you try to put in there, maybe we're putting in too much. I don't know. So a little, maybe fist and a half, right? So it drops down into our stomach. In the stomach is acid. You're like, wait a minute, how does that work? How does a container hold acid and not break through, right? Because our stomach has this goo inside called mucus. It's like mucus, like the goo in your nose, right? It's that. I know it sounds kind of gross, but our stomach actually makes this mucus lining, this mucus coating that's impervious to the acid that we also make in our stomach. Kind of a cool system, right? So it's all self-contained. If you eat too fast, if you have too much stress, if you're eating the wrong stuff, that mucus lining breaks down and you don't produce the acid you need. This is just basic physiology. So I'm going to keep going because I can easily go off on a tangent. I'm just going to keep taking the food through the digestive tract.
Maybe we can talk about more about stomach acid later. So the next step is the small intestine, right?
Yeah, the next step is after a couple of hours of slooshing back and forth, because your stomach doesn't just sit there actually, it actually has this mechanism that it slooshes all the food back and forth to help you make sure that all the pieces get fully in the acid, right? Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
We also make things called protease. Proteases are put out there and they help break down protein. Pretty easy to remember. They break down protein. So we start with carbohydrate digestion in our mouth. We go down the esophagus. Now we're going to work on protein and bigger parts with the acid in our stomach. Then a couple hours later, a little valve opens up and it starts to dump down into our small intestine. That goes to the right. And our small intestine absorbs a lot of our nutrients. We get a lot of nutrient absorption that happens in the small intestine. But what else happens before that is our pancreas, a gland, and our gallbladder that hangs out as like this storage depot under our liver, both squirt out separate kinds of like juice, if you will, into our small intestines. The pancreas, I know it's kind of cool, right? The pancreas makes a whole bunch of different enzymes. And those enzymes, like the protease, breaks down protein. It makes lipase, which breaks down lipids or fats. It makes amylase, which continues to break down carbohydrates. That happens in the upper part of the small intestine. Our liver makes the juice that goes into the gallbladder. And the gallbladder is just a storage depot for the liver juice, which is called bile. Bile also helps us not break down our fat, but like sequester or gather up our fat things to make them a little bit more water soluble so we can actually absorb them. So that's what the gallbladder does. And again, a tangent is if you lose your gallbladder, think about it, right? You're not getting as much bile all at once as you would if you kept your gallbladder. So that can create some digestive distress right there. Mm-hmm. Anyway, staying on track, right? Small intestine, right? It's like 6 or 8 or 10 or 15 feet. It's like some ridiculous length, right?
I think it's like 23 feet long or something.
It's really long.
We'll look it up. Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, the surface area, like if you laid it all out, opened it up and splayed it out, right?
Right.
Is equivalent to it's tennis courts.
Wow.
It's a lot. Like it's long and it's a lot. I'm sorry, say that again.
That's a lot of surface area for absorption.
Exactly. And that's what's supposed to be happening in our small intestine. Mm-hmm. We're supposed to pull in all the nutrients of that steak and quinoa and pea salad and all those things that we eat, all the crazy stuff that we eat, all of that stuff is to be absorbed in our small intestine. And
okay, do you want to hear what Google says?
What?
Okay, the small/large intestine length ratio. In humans, the small intestine is about 6 meters or 20 feet long.
Yeah.
And the large intestine is about 1.5 meters or 5 feet long. So yeah, altogether like 25 feet. That's crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot in there and you think it's all just rolled up on itself. So anyway, the nutrients that we eat, vitamins and minerals, the amino acids, which are your proteins broken down, right? Mm-hmm. Your fats, your glucose, which is all the starches broken down. All that stuff gets absorbed through the small intestine, most of it. So we move through the 20 feet, absorbing as we go, right? And we dump it into the large intestine. Mm-hmm. The large intestine starts at the lower right, and that's where our appendix kind of hangs off of there. And we have an ascending, a transverse, and a descending colon, large intestine, right? So it goes all the way through. That's why sometimes, you get a little stitch over here, a little stitch over there. Sometimes stuff just gets caught in the way, right? Mm-hmm. And then it takes a dive, kind of lower left corner, kind of into an S shape, the sigmoid colon, and then it becomes part of your anus, right? That's not exactly it, but that's close enough. So that's our large intestine. In our large intestine is mostly designed for water exchange. Like we reabsorb some of the liquids that we put out, right? We put a bunch of acid in, we put liquid out through the pancreas, we put some bile in there. There's a lot of liquid things happening, plus whatever you've had to drink, right? So the large intestine does some nutrient absorption and it fixes up our electrolytes, the minerals that we have to have in our body to make things run right. It fixes that piece up. But water absorption is really where that happens. So when you have hard stools or soft stools, like we're dealing in mostly the large intestine. And not entirely, but mostly. I'm trying to keep this general. Most of our body's bacteria also resides in the large intestine. Trillions of them, more bacteria in our body than number of cells in our body. So I'm sure you've heard of probiotics, or maybe not. Those are the good bugs that can live in our intestines. Most of them live in our large intestine. All right. Yeah. So then the food gets into this particular consistency, makes its way down, and we feel like we have a bowel movement, and out it goes.
Okay. So the bacteria balance in our large intestine, in our colon, is super important to our health, right?
Correct.
So in a perfect balanced body, that's going to look differently than in a state of dysbiosis or imbalance of our bacteria, right?
Right. So the bacteria serves a few purposes, and probably more than what I'm going to talk about here. But first of all, it does make some of our vitamins. Right? It helps to create some of our B vitamins. It does some of the work for our body. It also helps to break down fats and makes its own energy. Like the bacteria can help break down fats and carbohydrates into short chain fatty acids. And short and medium chain fatty acids feed the cells of the colon. Wow. So yeah, it's really important. Like that's part of how the colon cells get their energy. And they also feed themselves. So they break stuff down to feed other bugs. They're very symbiotic. They work together for your health as long as your colon is healthy. They can also work together for disorder, right? And so all the bad bugs can kind of get together. I always think about it kind of as like gang warfare, right? There's the good gangs, bad gangs. And when the good gangs outnumber the bad gangs, we can be really healthy. And when the bad gangs outnumber the good gangs, we're not as healthy, right? It kind of makes sense. The bad gangs make gas and bloating, and they can really dig in and make these like little huts inside of you. Like I'm trying to give you a visual here, right? They can really dig in and like hang out there and protect each other with their own toxins that they make. And we get sicker and sicker and sicker and don't really understand why.
Right, because it damages that lining of our intestine, and that's, can lead to leaky gut and that, right? When the bad bacteria outnumbers, this is how I understand it. It grows kind of like a root and really roots in, because it's like, we're here, we're taking over like a noxious weed. And
exactly.
And then it can, the longer it's there, it can burrow little holes into your lining, and then stuff that's supposed to stay in your gut and be protected by the lining starts leaking into your body and just causing real big problems.
That's true.
So yeah, good. Yes. So we
made it through the digestive system without too many.
Yeah, we did. Yes. The mouth all the way to the, And I'm kind of like, I'm really nerdy about gut bacteria because
I know it's like your favorite topic.
It really is. And the reason is because I had a bacterial imbalance, and then getting that fixed really changed my life. So that's why I get excited about it. So
I love that. That's great.
And I think it's a really common thing in modern life is to get at some point some dysbiosis or some imbalance in our gut, because there's so many things that are that can cause imbalance. So you talked about probiotics, which means like pro-life, right? That's like the good, mostly good bacteria, but it's like 85%, supposed to be like 85% good bacteria, like a small percentage of bad bacteria that has some functions, but not helpful if overgrown, right?
Right.
And then we have what's called an antibiotic, which is something that we take sometimes if we're sick and sometimes we need it. But what does that do to the bacteria? What does antibiotic mean?
So antibiotics were developed to actually treat illnesses. And those illnesses are stuff that you're familiar with. We'll just take pneumonia, because that was one of the primary pneumonia and like skin infections from wounds during the war. So staph, strep, those kind of infections that we get on our skin when there's been a wound, right? Those antibiotics were designed to prevent infection. And those infections at the time were bacterial infections. That's what antibiotics are designed for. They are designed to kill bacteria. And when antibiotics were developed back in the 1930s and 40s, it's even in a lot of the original literature that people are going to need to supplement with good bacteria. They knew that there was a host of good bacteria that lived inside of us. They knew then
right
that happened. And if you're, so the direction of a lot of the literature, if you look back in the old stuff, it says that a probiotic must be taken at the same time or thereafter an antibiotic to restore the health of the gut. Well, let's fast forward. Now we use antibiotics every time we have a sniffle, which may or may not be bacterial.
Yeah.
It may be viral, and our antibiotics do exactly nothing to viruses, exactly nothing for yeast. They just work on the bacteria. But they don't just work on your sinus infection bacteria or your pneumonia bacteria. They work through your whole body. So our gut bacteria get destroyed, and the balance of that can be destroyed by too many antibiotics. And if you've used an antibiotic every single year because you always get this thing, you can be rest assured that you've got some gut imbalance for sure. And what ends up happening a lot of times is we take these antibiotics, and we also have, in addition to bacteria, we have some yeast that live inside of us. I know this sounds really gross, but it's actually a good thing because they help make your B complex vitamins. They help do some things.
But you don't want yeast or healthy amounts of yeast.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but we don't want an overgrowth. So what did I just tell you, right? I just said that antibiotics kill bacteria, but they don't kill yeast. So let's walk all the way through this, right? You take antibiotic, you don't take a probiotic, you keep taking an antibiotic, you keep taking an antibiotic, and you keep getting these sinus infections, and you keep taking an antibiotic.
Right.
What's going to be, like, you don't have the bacteria anymore. What do you think is growing here?
Yeast.
Yeast. I mean, women have had this issue, sorry guys, but women have had this issue for years of getting vaginal yeast infections. But here's,
you can get it on your tongue, that white stuff on your tongue.
You can get it in the back of your throat. You can get it throughout your digestive system, and you can get it in your sinuses.
And you can get it on your skin too, I think.
You can, yeah. That's much more advanced, and generally happens when we really aren't controlling our blood sugar either. I mean, that's a tangent.
Okay.
That's a tangent.
Yeah.
So I don't want to go there because we really want to stick in digestion, right?
Yeah.
But just understand that multiple uses of antibiotics can really cause an overgrowth of yeast in some people. You may be genetically blessed. You may have some seriously hardy stock bacteria. You may have had antibiotics every year and your gut runs fine and you have zero health problems. And there are people out there like that.
Yeah.
I'm not one of them.
I'm not either.
You're not one of them. You're not one of them. But there are people like that. I have to say, I think that our hardy stock are fewer and farther between.
Yeah, because the modern world, there's so many other things. So you mentioned we've been talking about antibiotics, but getting like antibiotic pills from your doctor is not the only source of antibiotics in our modern world, because
Sure.
factory farmed, regularly or conventionally grown meats are given antibiotics to fatten them up. They're given antibiotics when they're sick. So that's in the meat, it's in the feed sometimes. It's
Right.
in a lot of more places too. And there's other toxins and medicines and things that affect the microbiome in a similar way.
Right. Almost every medication will, whether it's a heart drug or one for your high blood pressure or one for your diabetes. Most drugs will disrupt something in your digestive tract.
Yes. So this is a common thing, and which is why we're doing this summit. So we
Right.
can talk about what to do when maybe you have dysbiosis. So can you tell us some of the common symptoms of dysbiosis?
Sure. Some of it is what you already know. So dysbiosis, big word, right? Basically just means a disruption in the biome, right? The microbiome or the bacteria. So it's a dysfunction, right? It's dysfunction.
The ecosystem isn't working properly in your gut.
The what?
The ecosystem of bacteria, the synergistic balance is not proper.
Disrupted.
Yeah.
Right. That's correct. That's exactly what it is. And some of those symptoms can be, think about what happens if you disrupt the ecosystem of a body of water, right? You got this clear body of water and all of a sudden this algae starts growing in it. Then the fish change and then this changes and that changes. It's the same thing in our body. So when our ecosystem or our microbiome or the type of bacteria in our body starts to change, we change. We can change mood, believe it or not. We can change how our bowel movements are good or bad, or if you want to put a judgment on it, right? Are healthy or unhealthy. You may have gas and bloating. You may end up with food sensitivities or food allergies, headaches. There's a list of symptoms about a mile long, and I am pretty confident that you can give me a symptom and I can trace it back to the gut.
Yeah.
So a gut.
That's kind of a trick question, because you would have to list every symptom you could possibly have to answer my question.
Yeah, I mean, it's explosive in how many symptoms it could be. But if we're just talking about gut symptoms, you're looking at gas and bloating and diarrhea and constipation, and none of that is normal. None of it.
Right.
I mean, occasional gas is, the occasional gas, whatever. But constipation and diarrhea, it may be, quote, normal for you, but it is not normal for health. So those are things that if we're just looking at the digestive symptoms, it's like irritable bowel. I mean, that's really what we're talking about here is irritable bowel.
But that's also, I think it's okay in the context of this summit, because to talk about even more symptoms related to gut health, because that's kind of part of my story and why I got into this, was that I didn't have really obvious gut related symptoms. Like I didn't have bloating, gas, that type of thing. But I did have a little bit I was starting to get a little nauseous after I was eating, which was the only thing that would be like really logically related to the digestive system. But my symptoms were more like brain fog, fatigue, skin breakouts that were unusual for me, and just like a lack of energy kind of. So what I do want to kind of showcase in this summit for everyone is that, in my experience, when I addressed my gut health, those things cleared up. Right. And so I want to show them that gut health could be the root issue if it hasn't gotten yet to the point where you have some very serious, like leaky gut or Crohn's or some very obvious gut symptoms. Maybe in your body, that's not what happens. Maybe it shows itself in other ways when your gut is not absorbing properly or not eliminating properly, and you have a buildup of toxins and stuff. So, yeah. So it's all available.
Yeah, so there are other symptoms for sure that can show up.
Right.
Anything from headache, joint pain, hormone imbalance, autoimmune disorders, like that encompasses thyroid disorders, like you said, brain fog or the inability to concentrate well, pull words. A lot of those can be related to the downstream effects of having something going on in your gut. Like I said, pretty much every disorder, disease, PCOS, diabetes, a lot of this stuff can be linked back to whatever started the breakdown in our digestive tract in the first place. And like you said, it's not just antibiotics. It's the crap, sad food that we eat, right? Our standard American diet, or SAD, modern urban diet, MUD, our SAD MUD that we eat does not nutrify our body. Those 30 things that I said are absolutely essential. What if you're only getting 10 of them? How do you think that your car can run on half of the oil that it's supposed to have? How well is your transmission going to shift if it only has part of the transmission fluid? How long are you going to be able to clean your windows if you only have this little tiny bit of window wiper fluid, right? It's not going to work. And same thing happens with our body. Eventually, your body starts to break down when we have long-term poor nutrition. And that's what our standard American, modern urban, SAD, MUD diets create. It creates long-term malnutrition. I have patients who are, frankly, obese. And you think, how can they be malnourished, right? They eat all the time. They're some of my most sick, malnourished patients that I have because they're not eating food, right? They're eating junk. They're eating donuts and pizza and chicken nuggets and all of the stuff that's fast and easy, but has zero nutrients for what our body needs. And how could, you're not going to create a happy gut system if you're not putting in the nutrients that they also need to live.
Right. So this summit is designed to help people, or help everyone, me too, because I'm learning a lot, to learn some of these basic things. It's like kind of like if you buy a car, like when I was in college, I bought a car and I didn't really know how to take care of it. And I did not change the oil, and I ended up blowing up the engine, having to replace the engine in my Dodge Neon. And then yeah, and then so it got a brand new engine, but that's what happens, right? When you have something that you don't know how to take care of it, right? You can really kind of F it up, which is what I did with my car. So
you can't. Yeah,
my dad's like, don't you know you have to change your oil? And I was like, well, yeah, it was winter and I just didn't think about it. And anyways, so the point is, this is kind of just designed to help change our thinking on our body, right? Our body is our vehicle. We get to live in this one body, at least in this lifetime. And if we know how to take care of it, it's going to last longer. It's going to run faster. It's going to, be functional. And then we're going to be able to move through life in such a better way.
Right. I mean, I just had my birthday a couple weeks ago. I'm 54. And honestly, I feel like I'm in my 30s. I still run the same pace that I ran when I was 30. I still can do most of the classes with 35-year-olds that I used to take at the gym then. I can still do them now. There's no reason that our body has to break down because we get old. Yeah. My mom is the perfect example. She's going to be 88 this year. She still drives. She still goes to her Zumba Gold classes. She still rides her bike every day. She's 100 pounds and 5 foot tall, but this doesn't happen by accident. She doesn't accidentally change her oil, right? Yeah. It's intentional. It's actually intentional to take care of what we put in versus the sad mud that's fast and easy.
Right. And you can find evidence for whatever you want, right? If you believe that you're going to get that you're going to get old and you're going to get sick and this is normal and you just accept it, you're going to find a lot of other people around you in that same situation. So it's going to seem normal and you're going to be like, okay, this is normal.
What we attract.
But you can also find those examples like your mom, like my grandma, like my
dad too. I mean, he's actually.
Yeah, and you can look on YouTube and you see these videos of this, lady in her 90s doing gymnastics. Have you seen that one? I like to share this stuff on my page because I also like to nerd out on movement science. But anyways, so I shared a video the other day of this very elderly lady climbing a palm or a banana tree or some kind of a palm tree and getting stuff
Crazy.
out of it. And anyways, just amazing. But yes, I mean, this is the potential that we have, and we get to choose if we want to accept these things or if we want to nourish our bodies so that we can feel better as we age. And so, yeah, that's beautiful.
Right. So what else would you want? What other things can you think of that I can explain so that people can really understand okay, so we talked about the digestive system,
right,
and we talked about how nutrients are absorbed. That's called assimilation. And the other thing that we might want to discuss for a minute is the fact that 60 to 80% of our immune system is wrapped around our intestines. Now that may be really hard for some people to visualize, right? Because basically if you think about it, let's take a garden hose, right? And basically from the back of our throat, our esophagus is just a tube, right? So you can think of that as a garden hose. And then we have sort of an outpouching in our garden hose called the stomach. And then we have garden hose again, right?
Yeah.
Except it's all wound up in here, right? And then we have the outlet back there.
Right.
So if you think about the health of that, what else is going on in there is our immune system. And if you think about the wall of the garden hose, inside that wall is a good chunk of our immune system.
Yeah.
It's actually if you think about a hose, it's actually inside the plasticky part, not the whole part, the plasticky part, right? That's where a lot of, and just outside of that. So that's where a lot of our immune system resides. So when we eat really good, nutritious food, how do you think our immune system feels? It's happy. It's doing its job, right? It can do its job. But what if you assault it for extended periods of time with sad mud? It's literally like, you said you did a Spartan race, right? It's like throwing mud in the face of the participants.
Yeah, it's like clogging your hose up too.
Yeah, it clogs up your hose, but it really impacts your immune system to the point where your immune system gets really mad. And that's the seat of inflammation. People are like, oh, what's inflammation? We talk about inflammation all the time. It is your immune system telling you there is something wrong.
Right. It's like, go ahead.
Here's the cool part about your immune system. I'm going to connect a couple dots for everybody because inflammation is a big topic. And I just told you how it starts, right? Sad mud, antibiotics, toxins from the environment get into our body and make our immune system mad. And the symptoms that come out of that are determined by your genetics. That's the only place where genetics plays a role. It's about a 10 to 30% role. So you're not doomed by your genetics. You're doomed by what switches you turn on. And you turn those switches on by the choices that you make in your food, mostly.
Yes.
So our immune system gets mad. Let's say your immune system gets mad and in your genetics, right, you get an autoimmune disorder. So the first thing you start to feel, let's say it's rheumatoid arthritis, very common. Most people understand what it is. Let's say all of a sudden your shoulder starts to hurt a little bit, right? And then your knee hurts a little, and then your ankle and your wrists start to hurt. You're like, oh God, what the heck is going on here? Why is this happening? As you're eating your bowl of gluten-filled pasta. Like you don't understand that what you're eating is turning on genetics that create this autoimmune problem. And so when we change what we eat, we turn that off. It is controllable.
Right. Yes.
So I wanted to put all that together to just say that your digestive tract and your immune system cannot be pulled apart. And the other piece that cannot be pulled out of your digestive tract is your brain. Because our digestive tract makes more neurotransmitters. What the heck is that? Neurotransmitter, big word, right? It's our brain talking to our brain and to our body. It's stuff made, most what we thought was mostly made in our brain. Now we know a lot of it's made in our gut too. That creates communication around our body. That happens in our gut too. So now your immune system, your brain, and your gut are inseparable.
Yes.
I think it's kind of important to take care of your gut.
Yeah.
If you take care of that and you're putting in all 30 of those things that I said loosely that you need from the beginning, you're going to have a healthy body.
Yeah. And mind.
And well, yeah, I included our mind in the body.
Yeah. I'm just reiterating that point.
Absolutely. That's, I think, Rosanna, I think that was the piece that we were kind of, you wanted to make sure that everybody understood that the interconnectedness of our entire body.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things that are immune related diseases or autoimmune conditions, not necessarily diseases, but even like allergies, that's immune related, right?
Yes, it is.
That's something where your body at one point was accepting whatever this thing is as something that could handle, and then your immune system says, oh, I can't handle that anymore, and starts labeling it as something that's toxic when it not necessarily is. And right, I mean, it's a lot
of confusion down there.
Yeah. So what are some other things? You mentioned rheumatoid arthritis. Sure. I mentioned allergies. Is there anything else that's an obvious immune related disease that some people may not be aware of?
Well, I mean, even frequent colds and flu, like that's, if you can't defend yourself from different colds or flus, or you have a chronic something always, those are manifestations of a dysfunctional immune system. Yeah, there's a whole list of autoimmune disorders. I think it's over 200 now. I deal a lot with Hashimoto's and lupus and rheumatoid arthritis. Again, those are some of the big ones. Graves, again, those are some of the big ones. But I have a couple patients with myasthenia gravis. Those are a little bit more rare, right? Cancer. Do we want to walk down that road? Cancer is just a manifestation of your body not really being able to clear out and do like quality control when you produce a new cell. Every time your body starts to repair something, if it tries to repair it with used parts, you might get a cancer cell.
Wow.
Because if it doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Just think about that. Like if you have a Mercedes and your fuel pump goes out, right? It pumps fuel into the engine to make your engine go. But you decide that you're going to use a Chevy fuel pump, right? How well is that going to work, right? That's going to mess the whole thing up. And it's the same thing that happens to us with cancer is our bodies are creating cancer cells all the time. I mean, it's just part of the deal, right? It's just part of the job. We're going to make a cell that's not exactly right, and our immune system goes, "Ooh, that's not a great one. We're going to take that back. let's see if we can do that better next time," right?
Right.
But what happens is all of a sudden we're creating cells that are more bad than good. And that starts to happen because we don't have the right nutrition. We don't have the right antioxidants. We don't have what our immune system needs to do its job to go out and find and hunt down and kill the cancer cells before they take over. Now, this is a very general, broad way of looking at cancer. Right. I'm not in any way saying this is the cure. I am not in any way saying that this is the only way that cancer happens. I'm just saying that this is a potential to happen with a dysfunctional immune system.
Right. It is related to the immune system, right? Because what is the immune system? The immune system is our body's way of repairing itself. Protect, right?
Yep. Defend and repair.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much any disease is related to the immune system. And the immune system is directly related to the gut. So this is how, if we were to say the gut is related to everything, someone could probably not prove us wrong.
Yeah, it would be pretty hard.
I would love if someone would, because I'm curious if that's possible, because I really believe that everything is related to the gut for the reasons we just kind of discussed.
Right.
So let's talk about some other things. I don't know how in depth we're going to get into this in this summit, but since we're talking about digestive health, this is kind of a fascinating topic that I don't know much about. But let's talk about a little bit about parasites. What do you know about that?
Okay. Well, back in the day when I went to school, there was a lot of talk about parasites, and the common parasitic stuff happens if the patient was in a third world country, or if they went camping and drank water out of a stream, right? That's when the true parasite problems can happen. Frankly, and there are plenty of doctors out there that will say something different than what I'm about to say, but I don't see parasites in the numbers that many doctors do. Now, I'm going to qualify that. I see yeast infections all the time, and yeast can become parasitic. So if you're talking about an actual bug as a parasite, right, or if you're talking about the function of parasiticism, where the parasite becomes the organism that just takes. It's a take.
Kind of an overgrowth can also be called parasitic. So it's not necessarily like the word has two definitions.
Right.
Like an overgrowth where it becomes a parasite, like a
taker. It just takes nutrients from you.
Okay. And then
that's what a parasitic relation
worm
versus a single cell organism that is an infection.
Okay.
Right. And we have those. I'm not saying that they don't exist. They do exist.
Yeah.
But most of the time, a lot of people, what I find is I will absolutely do the stool test, but rarely does the parasite come back. When the person is adamant, I've got a parasite, it's not. It's usually an overgrowth of yeast or an overgrowth of a certain type of bacteria that has become parasitic in the person. So again, I'm not saying I haven't ever seen parasites, but it does happen.
Yeah, and there are ways to deal with that, right?
Absolutely, ways to deal with it. The medical doctors are going to deal with it in a way. I'm going to deal with it probably in a conjoined way with a group of medical doctors and a group of herbs, because I think that that's probably the most effective way to do that is to work within what we know kills those guys off quickly and efficiently, and then we'll work to rebuild that gut health back up. So that's the parasite thing. It's whether you just have an overgrowth of yeast or bacteria, or do you actually have an infection, a bug infection. That may be a completely different story.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that, because I just wanted to touch on that. So
yeah, I think it's an important topic.
Yeah. So let's just for a minute discuss some solutions or some things. So I grew up in a very holistic health type of environment, and my mom made, ointments out of herbs. So there's a lot of medicinal things that we think of weeds like plantain, yarrow that are just growing everywhere that actually have medicinal qualities. There's herbs that are antibacterial, antiviral, right? Honey, oregano, thyme, all these things. So nature has given us a lot of solutions, and then there are other solutions we've kind of discovered. So let's just talk about some possibilities of solutions so people can get a preview of what we're going to be talking about in this.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I'm going to plug my book, right?
Yeah, please.
So this is where Simply Functional Medicine actually came. This is what Simply Functional Medicine came out of. I wanted to explain stuff in a simple way, but I also wanted to offer some simple, obvious solutions. And so one of the things that most patients come in saying is, I feel like crap. So I decided to take crap, because I'm an eternal optimist, and turn it into something more positive. So crap stands for, the C in crap stands for exactly where we want to start. It stands for clean it up. Clean it up, right? Quit eating sad mud. So eat. Quit drinking so much coffee all day long and then alcohol all night long, right? We wake up to coffee and go to bed with alcohol. That's the American way. So maybe you want to drink some water, or some decaffeinated herbal tea, or some fizzy water, LaCroix or Perrier or something like that. So eat, clean up your act. Right. You know that chicken nuggets are not healthy because they have billions of dollars worth of marketing that tells you they are.
Yes. If there's a commercial for it, avoid it.
Avoid it. Exactly. So what are the things that don't have commercials? Lean protein, whether it's plant-based or animal-based, vegetables.
Yeah, I've never seen a commercial for broccoli, so that's a safe bet.
That's probably a really safe bet. Exactly. Exactly. So, those are the things that, think about eating those kind of foods. Just shift. I'm not saying you have to do it 100% because everybody has to get there in their own time, but let's start somewhere, right?
Baby steps.
Yeah, let's start, having a little yogurt or kefir and maybe taking a probiotic will help change some things. So clean it up. Clean up your eat, clean up your drink, clean up how you move. You know what? Even in the wintertime, you can do steps in your apartment building or in your home or in the building down the street or walk around a mall. Most of us have ability to move our body 30 minutes a day, 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes a night, whatever it takes. Eat, drink, move, sleep. This is when we repair our body.
Right.
Sleep. Eat, sleep 6 to 8 hours. You got to do it. Your body needs it. It's when we repair. It's when the repair shop opens.
Right.
So if you don't sleep and you wear this badge of courage, oh, I can get away with 4 hours. That's awesome. But you're not repairing yourself and you're breaking down faster than you're repairing yourself.
Right.
So
that's a good way to age quickly.
Go for it. That's the perfect way to age fast.
And another thing is when you said food too, is like environmental toxins, like what are we putting on our largest organ? Have you looked at the ingredients in that sunscreen or that lotion or that perfume or that deodorant or that toothpaste?
Yeah. What do you
makeup or that lipstick, right?
Yeah. What are you cleaning your bathroom with? What are you cleaning your kitchen with? What are you cleaning your clothing with? All of those toxins add up to create that dysbiosis that we talked about before. So that's about cleaning things up. Eat, drink, move, sleep, think and feel. Clean up your emotions. We'll talk a lot about that later on.
Yeah.
So really want to look at just the basic stuff. It doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to have a million recipes. You can just stick a chicken breast on a grill. You can just stick a pork chop on a grill. Is it grass-fed? Good. If it's not and you can't afford it, that's fine. At least start somewhere.
Right.
You're better off eating that than something that came out of a box that has a million ingredients.
Yeah.
Find what you can afford and afford as clean as you can.
Yeah, and don't start with everything at once, maybe just do one thing at a time too,
Right. It doesn't have to be overwhelming.
Yeah, and you're not going to be perfect and that's okay, right?
Right. You can change your microbiome in 3 days. 3 days. 3 days. 3, regardless of how you put your fingers, 3 days. Right? So your gut health can change in 3 days.
Wow. It can start to change anyways, right?
Yeah, it can totally change over. And exactly. It's not going to be, I did not say you were going to be healed in 3 days. I said it will change in 3 days.
Right.
From whatever it is now, it will change in 3 days if you start changing what you put in it.
Right. And any improvement is good improvement because that will slowly start the ball rolling in the right direction.
Exactly. And I know since you're doing this whole summit that I'm sure that your participants and people who tune in are going to get a lot of different answers, and you have to figure out what's going to work best for you. Yeah. Not everybody has the answer. Not everybody goes keto diet or paleo or autoimmune protocol, and everybody says theirs is the best. Right. You can get really lost in all of that and choose to do nothing.
Yes, thank you for saying that. So that is a really good point. I would like to just
here is easy, but is an easy place to start.
Yes, I love that.
But it is easy. It's, it's a couple of eggs and some vegetables for breakfast. It's 10 almonds or 20 almonds or a tablespoon of peanut butter in the middle of the morning. And maybe, maybe another little tiny bit of fruit. It's a salad with protein on it at lunch, or some kind of protein, right? It can be edamame or it can be pork chops. It doesn't matter. It's
Right.
vegetables and lean protein. Afternoon, how about some guacamole and veggies, right? Or hummus and veggies in the afternoon. And then a sensible dinner. Most of my patients eat like protein, vegetables, starch, right? Protein, some kind of vegetable, and some kind of potato or pasta. That's a pretty standard American dinner. So if you can start just creating that alone.
Right. Not going out to eat all the time, because they're going to probably, depending on where you're choosing to eat, it can be a disaster to go to a restaurant for your digestive system. So we're getting short on time, so I apologize, but I would like to, I feel I don't even want to stop talking about this subject with you. This has been super helpful, and thank you. Also, yes, just to reiterate, there's going to be 25 experts on this summit at least. And so everyone has a different perspective, a different story, a different health issue, a different set of things that created their process and their journey. And so there's a lot of different perspectives on gut health as far as how to get to that better health. The good news is that every single one of my experts has gotten there for themselves, from a state of dysbiosis, chronic disease, autoimmune disorders, skin issues, all kinds of different issues came from there and is feeling better than ever. So the good news is that there's actually more than one way to get to this place. And you get to experience this summit and not go into a place of overwhelm, like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Actually go into a place of, whoa, this is so cool. I can choose what works best for me, right? Because everyone is different. And so that's what I hope that you get out of this, is some simple, easy tools that you can implement that can change your life, just like I had happen to me. Mine was a super easy fix. I was already eating healthy, so that was helpful. And I just had to take a really high quality probiotic. My dysbiosis, my yeast overgrowth went away, and my life changed within, a couple of weeks to a couple of months, like 3 weeks to 3 months, I really saw a huge change. So it's different for everyone, but I just wanted to say that. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about your digestive system so that you can support yourself better and have an awesome life. Repair your gut, restore your life. So
awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for being with us today and helping us to kind of break this down in an easy to understand way. Simply functional medicine, right?
Simply functional medicine. Yep. Thank you. And the ebook that I'm providing for everybody has a lot of what we talked about, and it does have the simple plan. I call it Eat for Energy. It has it in the document that you can download. So get your free download.
Yes. Don't forget to pick up your free gift. We'll actually see Dr. Kris one more time, which is really exciting, in the summit, in a bonus interview. So thank you for being with me twice, and I really appreciate it. And
You got it. Thank you.
Oh.